Ahoy! And welcome to Manning Overboard. Happy Hour with Hotcakes and the Captain. A show about the good in liquid life.
Where we talk about bars, bartending, and booze.
She's Hotcakes.
And he's the Captain.
Thanks for coming aboard. Now, let's go overboard. Ahoy and welcome to Manning Overboard. Happy Hour with Hotcakes and the Captain. I'm the Captain, Rich Manning, and with me, as always, is my lovely and beautiful wife, Heather Hotcakes. So, Hotcakes, we have some drinks here, and they look fabulous. What are we having?
Hi. Well, in honor of our guests, as always, we are drinking things that they might have had a hand in. So, for me, actually, I am drinking a traditional frozen daiquiri, but with a little bit of a spin. So, in the book that they might have had a hand in writing, it is a frozen daiquiri that's got your typical rum, granulated sugar, not simple, lime juice, and 7 dashes of Regan's orange bitters.
Lovely.
Oh, and specifically 360 milliliters of ice. Make sure you weigh that out. It makes all the difference in the world.
Indeed.
And then for you,
yes,
we have named after, and I quote, a big-ass American gun,
Ooh.
the Horowitzer, which is 1.5 ounces of whiskey, 0.5 simple, 0.5 lemon juice, and 7 drops of peach bitters.
That's lovely.
It's their version of an American French 75.
And just so you know, I love you, and this is why this podcast is awesome.
Why?
It's actually called the Howitzer, not the Howitzer.
Okay, the Howitzer.
It's okay.
I don't know my guns, and that's not a bad thing necessarily.
No, not at all. No, yeah. In fact, you win. I feel like a jerk for knowing how to pronounce it.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. Okay. Well, before we go any further, will you please introduce our guest and ask them what they're drinking today?
Absolutely. So today's guest is Neal Bodenheimer.
Yay!
The man more or less responsible for bringing the craft cocktail movement to New Orleans. No big deal.
No big deal.
So Neal is the managing partner for CureCo, the food and drink group behind North America's 50 Best Bars mainstay, James Beard Award winner Cure, as well as acclaimed spots Cane and Table and Val's. And he's also on the board of directors for the Tales of the Cocktail Foundation.
I might have heard of it.
Which is pretty cool. And runs a beverage operation at the beloved New Orleans bar Peychaud's at the Celestine. He's also a partner of the Michelin-rated star restaurant Dauphins in Washington, D.C. His first cocktail book, Cure, New Orleans Drinks and How to Mix Them, with the apostrophe EM, which is where we got these lovely drinks, won an IACP Cookbook Award, and it was a James Beard Media Award finalist in 2023. He also earned Drinks Professional of the Year that very same year by the VinePair Next Wave Awards. And on top of all of this, he's truly one of the nicest, humblest souls in the drink industry.
He really is. And
a fierce advocate of New Orleans culture beyond Bourbon Street. So, without further ado, welcome Neal to Manning Overboard.
Yay!
And seriously, friend, it's so good to see you.
What a welcome. That was
awesome. What
are
you drinking?
Thank you. Okay, so I had to act quickly, and I smuggled this really amazing gift back from the botanist in Vancouver over the 50 Best North America weekend. We did some work with them, and Grant and the team over there sent us with these bottles, and I've been waiting to have a sip out of it, and so I pulled it out of my freezer. This is my martini glass, and this is me drinking their awesome martini.
Cheers!
Cheers!
Mm-hmm.
I think I jumped the gun. Good God!
You are
no, it's okay. No. I made a mess over here, so you're fine.
We're all making messes. It is all fine. So
and Heather, I definitely will make a Horowitzer next. That'll be the next version of it.
I just loved in your book that you named it after a big ass American gun, simply because
the
French 75 is named after a big ass French gun. So you were like, if this is gonna be the America's version of a French 75, we're gonna name it after a big ass gun as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that drink was on our first was the first original cocktail that we did at Cure. Our first menu, 16 and a half years ago, was mostly classics. And then that was our one original. And then over time, we ended up doing more original. And we ended up, we always have a section of classics and then a section of original. So, but it was the first, and it still gets ordered to this day, which is crazy. And it's simple, and
it's delicious.
It always hits.
Yeah,
thank you.
Freaking delicious, Neal.
It's delicious. It's delicious. And my daiquiri is falling all over the place. This is honestly the first time I've ever made a frozen daiquiri before, but I've had plenty of them. In New Orleans, New Orleans is one of the few places where it's absolutely appropriate to have a frozen drink, and the dashes of the Regan's orange bitters makes a difference. It's delicious. Thank you for that. Thank you for that tip.
It does. I mean, honestly, there are very few drinks in this world that aren't improved by a little bit of bitter, by a dash of bitters. And it's just, they're flavor connectors. We always talk about louvers indoors because we have louvers on all of our freaking doors here, right?
Yeah.
So I've always think about bitters in the world of louvered doors, when you have these cocktails that all the slats are open. And when you add bitters, it just closes the slats and connects everything. So I'm a bitters enthusiast.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And of course, martinis, since you're drinking the martini there from Botanist, orange bitters, right? Do you use orange bitters a lot?
If you can get, orange bitters are kind of my go-to. Sometimes I'll use like a lemon bitter.
Okay.
But, you're always looking for something pretty subtle. There's no place to hide in a martini, right? So you don't want to, you could put a few drops of something with a pretty strong flavor profile and it would dominate. So you really want to find those things that accentuate what's already there.
So as we begin most of our interviews for our listeners and viewers, can you give a brief introduction of where you grew your bartending bones, as I like to say? Where did you come from? Where did you find your love behind the bar?
I never really thought I would be called to this profession when I was younger, but I happened to grow up in New Orleans, and during a time where it was not 21 to drink, it was 18 to drink. And my first job in a bar just after I turned 18, and I was a bouncer. And obviously you guys know me, and I'm not the biggest dude of all time. So it was when you were 18 and you were a bouncer in a place where it was 18 to drink. We weren't really bouncers necessarily, more than we were a vehicle to get all of our 18-year-old friends into the bar.
Sure.
So we were bouncers / promoters, either knowingly or unknowingly. And I just fell in love with it. I just thought it was the coolest thing at 18. And I still think it's the coolest thing. I never stopped. 30 years later, sorry to date myself here. I still think bars are cool. I still love them.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think it's a crazy realization that it's been 30 years in bars and restaurants. But it's, we had a ball back then, and we still have fun. And, I love, I'm lucky to love what I do. And I just kind of always bounced in and out of bars and restaurants. I spent a year off when I was in college working as a host in a restaurant for the Brennan family that really taught me to love restaurants and to love the process of restaurants. And then when I went back to college, I worked for a restaurant doing marketing. They had a packaged line of sauces. I went to the University of Texas, and it was a restaurant that was out in the Hill Country. So I used to go to grocery stores and sample their sauces and have to know everything that was in them. And it was so fun to have a reason to talk to strangers. I just loved it. And I think that's the thing that I'll never lose that love of in bars is having a reason to talk to people that maybe I wouldn't talk to otherwise.
Sure.
It's not always good. Sometimes you talk to people who are crazy as hell, and sometimes you end up meeting incredible people. But it's eventually I traveled for almost a year of my life, and my brother used to work back of house in restaurants, and I had some front of house experience, and we found this place in Malaysia, off the East Coast that we loved, and we wanted to stay there, and we ended up running a little cafe
Really?
and partnering on a cafe that was run on generators. I do not think the health department would approve. The generators would run at night, and we'd have freezer, and then it would defrost, and we would make our stuff. It was not exactly a picture of America of perfection
Yes.
for the American Health Department or for any U.S. city. So, and we did that, and it was so fun. And we got to, I would work front of house, and my brother would work in the kitchen. We'd both prep. One of us would go diving during lunch, and the other would run lunch. And then the other one of us would when the other one got back, the other one would go and play beach volleyball in the afternoon, and then we would come together and we would run dinner. And we did that until we realized that we were making enough money to exist on this very small island. But it was not worth the tickets that were about to expire somewhere else. We were not really accruing money. We were actually just getting by where we were. And so we stopped that, and we continued our travels. And then at the end of that trip, it was kind of punctuated by September 11th. And that took all the joy out of traveling in that moment for me.
Yeah.
And I came back to the U.S. and I moved to New York immediately, and that's where I wanted to be, and thought I would get a job in advertising, and no one was hiring after 9/11. And so I went back to what I knew, which was restaurants, and I worked for Be Our Guest restaurants for Steve Hansen's old group. And I was lucky enough to be on the Upper East Side when a very dear friend, an old friend of mine, Evan Clem, took over as corporate mixologist. He was one of the first corporate mixologists in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up starting on the Upper East Side where I was stationed. And because there was a tradition of drinking classic cocktails. I mean, there was a writer who would come in who would drink Scotch Scotch old fashions. We were making plenty of Cosmos back in 2001, and plenty of other teenies.
Yes.
But we were also making Manhattans and old fashions and some things that made Evan believe that maybe classic cocktails could work up there. Now, it was also an amazing time because Audrey Saunders was running the program at Bimmelman's during that time. So It was always nice to get to go run in there as a very young bartender and see what they were doing. So it was a interesting time, and I bounced around New York for a long time. I worked in restaurants. I worked in nightclubs. I got the privilege of working for Danny Meyer at the Modern, and then Katrina happened, and I wanted to go back home. And within a year, I was back home. I was planning what would become Cure when I lived in New York, and I ended up after Katrina. I said, you know what? I just need to do what I'm planned here, and I need to do it there. And it took some time to find the right building, and New Orleans was a mess post Katrina, but there was also opportunities, and we ended up buying the old firehouse where Cure is, and we bought that in the spring of 2008, and then we opened in February of 2009, and the rest is history.
That's fantastic. Now, how important was it to build a craft cocktail scene in New Orleans in a post-Katrina environment?
I mean, to me, it was really important because it was a passion of mine. But I always say this is that there were people that were making amazing cocktails around New Orleans, and if you went to the right bar on the right night, you could get an amazing cocktail. But that was the key: is that there was very few bars where besides one person, there was no one behind them on the nights when they weren't working who could do the same sort of things. I mean, you had Chris McMillan making amazing drinks, but if you got the other person who was working, then maybe you weren't getting as good a drinks that night. If you if you went to Paul Gusting's at Two Jocks, you could get a great drink. But Paul, nobody's working 7 days a week.
Right.
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 Sure. Yeah.
So, and obviously Chris Hanna over at French 75, and Ricky Gomez, and he was over at Commanders, and he was also
Yeah.
at Loa, and Danny Valdez was at Commanders, and then Brennan's, and so there were a lot of people doing it. Rhiannon Enlow was at Aaron Rose, and then was at Bartonique, and there were people that were just floating, and we said, look, we need to make sure that there are multiple bartenders here every night that are making great drinks. And I remember when I moved back, I worked at a little place called the Della Chase. That was a wine bar, and it was not a cocktail bar. And then the Bartonique ended up growing out of that, and I ended up helping them open Bartonique while we were trying to get Cure open. But it was just a different time. It's funny. I've been thinking a lot about our friend Chris Patino.
Yeah.
And Chris was here in New Orleans at that time, and I really credit Chris Patino a lot with helping to kind of lay the groundwork with what would be our bar community here in New Orleans. He was such a dear friend to me, and to Chris Hanna, and to Rhiannon, and to Danny, and to Ricky, and he really kept us together when there were all these different people running around, Chris McMillan too, and that we were, he made sure that we spent time together, and he made sure that we were friends, and it helped. I really believe kind of create the spark that changed our bar scene down here.
Yeah.
So what came first? Well, obviously, obviously then it's crucial to use the bar to reach out to the community of bartenders to nurture not only the next wave of bartenders, but to nurture the first wave of bartenders. That came first, right? You guys needed to figure out yourselves before being able to, like, you had to figure out where you all were going first.
100%, and that was, there was it was certainly a time, in the early e-gullet days, and early, and some internet stuff. I mean, I remember Jeffrey Morgenthaler posting a lot, hey, how do you make tonic? And Robert Hess was doing his videos, and people were trying to figure out how to source bitters that weren't, that were different. Could we get someone? I remember trying to convince someone to bring fee bitters into New Orleans. It was just there were all these things that we had to do to try to get the products that we wanted. This was not a time where it was easy to get the things that we take for granted today. Right. And so, so much of what happens in bars and restaurants, and we'll use bars specifically, it is around supply chain. And we've experienced that a lot in our life during COVID and post-COVID. But trends, what people are into, so much of that has to do with what we have access to. I mean, I remember having to beg our suppliers and our distributors to bring in the products that we wanted. Then it was such a hard argument because these were products that no one sold, right? No one, they were like, why would I bring in this thing that I didn't sell a case of last year? Sure. Why would I keep that? Why would I get that for you? And so we would have to pick a product, say we're going to support it, and then go support it, right?
Right.
And then once we supported it, we just to show that it could exist.
Sure.
And then what ended up happening to so many of these early cocktail bars is that we'd find these products, and then other people would be like, "Oh, I'm interested in that," and then it would create a home in the market for the products. And so there was so much of that in the early days of, number one, learning, trying to figure out best practices in cocktail bars, because we were all winging it, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And then from there, trying to make sure that we could get the products that we need. And we've come a long way as an industry. Let me just tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's fascinating to talk to like those first wave like brand ambassadors that, what you're saying, Neal, from their perspective too, is like they were trying to figure out, okay, what is this job and how do I do it and what are the politics behind it? And, the younger generation, I don't want to sound like these damn kids today, but these damn kids today don't realize how difficult it was in that first 5 to 10 years of the craft cocktail renaissance. And because it also coincided with the craft spirits movement as well. And all these new rules and all these ground rules had to be established on the fly. So.
Yeah, look, I agree. It's just it's different. It's not better or worse. It's different, right?
Absolutely.
And I just remember those days. They were hard, but they were also really exciting, right? I remember when you get a new product through the door, it really meant something. And now, new products are brought to market consistently that are geared towards towards cocktail bars. But the really big thing is that I think that we've lost a lot as an industry is, I genuinely believe that in order to make it in the early days of craft cocktails, you had to ask yourself why a lot. Why am I doing this? Why am I stirring like this? Why am I shaking? You were constantly thinking about why. Why in this old recipe did they do this? And you were we were constantly trying to take things apart to rebuild them. And we did end up getting to SOPs, and we did end up getting to best practices, right? But just because we got to best practices at that time doesn't mean that those best practices don't need to be questioned consistently. And that is one of the things that I would love to see as an industry, is that we say, hey, why are we doing this? Like, everybody does it like this. Why is there so much sameness around this? And where can we innovate in that way? Where can we change what we're doing? And people do it here and there. But I also think that one of the things, and we've been, there are a few people that have talked about this a lot, and I wholeheartedly believe that Instagram and Facebook and TikTok have changed the way that we drink a lot. And it actually, as the world gets smaller, we have a more homogenous industry and there's more sameness. And it's something that I don't love. I really want to see the regional differences between cocktails. I don't want to see the same things from California to New York to Hong Kong to, Tokyo. Like, you want to see individuality, in my mind.
Didn't Jim just said something about that recently? Yeah.
He did. It really struck me. And it's something that I've been talking about for a while, and certainly Kirk has been talking about for a while, but Jim really came out and said it in a way that, he really helped, and I think helped drive it home. And I 100% agree with him.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and it's not just about flavors. I think flavors is an easy out. I think flavors is an easy way out, but also there are techniques, there are traditions, there are styles, there is an education setting in each, not even just culture, but in each area that we can learn from. And I agree with you in that we need to honor and respect the things that are happening and not necessarily chase the sameness that everybody is going after. Because I think everybody is I think people are chasing a goal, and in chasing that one goal, which we can all agree on, we know what that goal is, we're losing what makes everybody special and unique. Yeah.
But and we think about that a lot in New Orleans too, right? And so, New Orleans is a special, unique culture.
Absolutely.
And it's something that we have to think about constantly, is like, what are the things where, I like to say it's this like pendulum that swings back between preservation and progress. And what are the things that are progress that, that fit within what we do culturally, and what are the things that we really need to preserve and not chase these things that are new. And it's a constant conversation that we have to have with ourselves. Like in the
Yeah.
world of New Orleans culture, food, drink, music, like where is the innovation, and where is that moment where we have to say, no, this is what we do, this is who we are, and
Yeah.
this is our identity.
Yeah. How do you preserve the Sazerac? How do you preserve
Yeah.
the French 75? How do you make those things?
And not to tip how old we are, but we are also getting to the point where the younger generation, like the 23, 24-year-olds that have cut their teeth on learning how to make drinks on Instagram or TikTok, they may not know the significance of a Sasha Petrosky or an Audrey Saunders. And that's really weird to say, considering, we're of that age group where we saw a lot of this flourish in real time. But it's out there, and that's one other thing that we got to do is when we talk about preserving history of the cocktails and stuff like that. And now that also includes what happened in that zeitgeist of the early part of the 21st century, and
Yeah.
that's a conversation I think that is going to be needing to increase. The good thing is with the internet and all that, this is not going to go away because the exchange of information is so much more robust. But it's how we use that information, and it's up to us to figure out how to use it. And part of that is to find ways to find that deviation and really celebrate the differences, whether they're regionally, culturally, etc. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that's on all of us, right? Is to find the things where we are. For you guys to find the things in California that are
mm-hmm.
uniquely California. For me to find the things in New Orleans that are uniquely New Orleans, and to try and elevate those, and to try and continually look at them and edit and reinterpret, and to do the things to make sure that we're all putting our culture out there in the world.
Yeah. And that leads me to my next question for you, Neal. And this is something that we've talked about in the past, you and I, that there is the two sides of New Orleans, right? There's the
Hmm.
touristy side, but then there's the stuff that preserves the cocktails and really reveres and such. And it's actually one of your bars is part of one of my favorite stories in New Orleans. First time that Heather and I were in New Orleans together, we had just gotten to an event in Bourbon Street, and it was loud and raucous and not our scene. We turn the corner, we run into Pay Shows. It's quiet, and Nick Jarrett's behind the bar, and we had this lovely cocktail. And then Nick just happened, I'm wearing a Ramon shirt, and he just casually mentions, "Oh yeah, my buddy designed that logo." It's like, first of all, Nick Jarrett, but secondly, it's just
Yeah,
the
what a
fact,
treat to run into a bar where Nick Jarrett's behind the bar.
Right.
yeah. But more to the point is that it was just quiet. It was just such a respite from that famous side of New Orleans, that Bourbon Street, and so you know, it has become more of a challenge to really showcase tourist perception of what drinking in New Orleans is, especially after post Katrina, after post COVID. Actually, how is that going?
Well, look, this is it's a long story, and
Yeah.
certainly, we've talked about it at length, but a lot of it has to do, with how New Orleans positioned itself for years. And, we are really lucky to be a place where people go to have a really good time,
Sure.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that the city of New Orleans for years and years and years loved to highlight. And in that, they highlighted some of the most over the top uh, experiential drinks, and it just was about the volume of consumption often, and not the
Overindulgence.
quality of
Yep.
consumption.
Yep.
And I think that there's a very intentional, I think so many of us are working really hard to kind of reframe how New Orleans is looked at, and like it's a place where you should come to have a great time, but there also are amazing things here. It's not just our food, It's not just our music. It's not just our art. It's also our beverage. And
Yeah.
so that's something that's really important to me personally as an ambassador and a native of New Orleans and someone who loves the city deeply. Like, I really want to show that our drinking culture is wonderful, and it's a piece of what hopefully makes people want to come to New Orleans. So it's very important to me. And yes, you should be able to have a foot long beer on Bourbon Street if that's your deal.
Mm-hmm.
Totally get it. It's just not for me. I would rather turn the corner and find a little oasis where I can have an amazing cocktail and listen to great music and relax. That's just who I am. Those are the kind of bars I want to make. I want to make places where I want to be and where other people want to be. And I understand that is not I'm not making bars for everybody, and not everybody's going to like the places that we do. And I'm not going to like the places that everybody else likes too.
Mm-hmm.
Changing courses in our conversation, going into another, what I believe to be is a passion of yours, moving into your involvement with Tales of the Cocktail now. You are highly involved with the organization of Tales. It's not just the week of Tales. It is a full organization of everything that goes along with it, and the scholarships and the education and everything that is involved in it. How significant has Tales changed since the pandemic?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I really believe Tails changes every year.
Okay.
And I think that we always look at the structure, we always look at what we're doing. And I know some years it feels the same. And so much of that has to do with what's happening in the industry. But what I've noticed is that every few years there is a sea change in the world of Tails, because ultimately we are sourced from the industry. And so we follow bartenders, and bartenders tell us what they're interested in.
Sure.
Brands tell us where their focus is, where their foci are. And we're just constantly trying to listen and trying to present what people tell us they're interested in. And that has come in many shapes and sizes in the almost 7 years since I've been involved, which is insane to think where the time has gone since we took over in 2018.
Right.
And it's also, one of the big things, probably our biggest challenge is talking about the work we do, but it's also reminding people that we're not just a festival in a conference,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that we're a nonprofit, and that we are here to give back to this industry. And we do it through grants, and we do it through support, and we do it through programming. And that so much of what we do is about giving back. It's not just, for us, like, obviously we have education. Obviously we have liquid to lips for brands. Obviously we have activations, we have pop-ups, we have dinners, whatever, we have awards. Like, there's so much to Tales. We have, focusing on health and beyond the bar, and self-improvement, and trying to make this a career, a sustainable career for people. But in the end, I think that the number one thing that we are here to do is to make this a better industry and to give back. And, I feel very fortunate that, this is an industry that's given me everything. It's given me an incredible life, incredible friends, and the opportunity to do something that I love. And I feel that it is my duty to give back. And Tales of the Cocktail, for me, from my perspective and what I do, and through the nonprofit, is that vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because the word foundation is often overlooked when people talk about Tales of the Cocktail. It's like really being able to say, yes, Tales of the Cocktail Foundation, that word really helps focus on a lot of the stuff that you said, Neal, that tends to get lost in the shuffle. And I think it continues to be important, and especially as it evolves and people have especially coming out of the pandemic, people have realized the community aspect and really embraced it more than ever, I think.
Yeah.
Because you go to New Orleans, we don't go necessarily to Tales to drink cocktails or all that. We go there to hang out with people that we love and build that community and support each other. And just, it's a great pulse to just check in and say, how are you doing? Where are you at? And that's important. And that's what this industry is all about.
In their moments, right? Like that's the magic of Tales. I met my business partner, Kirk Estopanol, at Tales at a spirited dinner that the Death and Company was doing. And we hit it off. We've been partners for 16 years, and that, it's, I always come back to the fact that there are these like very natural, you might want to call them kismet, but there are these moments that happen at Tales, relationships, business, personal. There's so much that happens when you put people in the same place. And, when you put people around, not just at activations, but in education, in the CAP program. And the CAP program makes friends for life. It makes a network for life.
Yeah.
And there's just so much good that happens in the 5 days around Tales. It is, to me, it's this thing that is just, it's a wonderful moment. I don't get to enjoy it as much as I would like.
Yes.
Yeah.
They keep me pretty busy, but it is, I feel very, very grateful that people come to support the industry. And that is what you do when you come to Tales, is that you're here to support the overall industry and to feel like you're part of something bigger. But you also are supporting New Orleans, and New Orleans is a great city, and it is not always a thriving community. It's not in a thriving state. And when people come here and they spend their dollars in New Orleans, they, particularly during our slowest time of the year, it certainly would be our slowest time of the year if Tales were not here, you are really doing a great service to our hospitality industry. It makes a difference to Uber drivers, to bartenders, to servers, to folks that work in hotels. Like, it really means a huge deal to us, and we are always appreciative of all of the Tales attendees that come during what is not the best time to visit New Orleans. We've made it the best time to visit New Orleans, but from a weather standpoint, it is not the best time to be in New Orleans.
Oh, believe me, when we tell people that we're going to New Orleans in July, when we talk to our normies, they're always like, why?
Normies.
When we talk to our normies, they're always like, why? I'm like, because it's the most wonderful time in the world.
Yeah.
It sucks, but it's the most wonderful time in the world.
Everything is air conditioning, and it's fine. I mean,
or there's a pool. It's fine. Or you'll get wet. It's fine.
Yeah, if you don't have an AC that makes people feel cold the minute that they walk in the door, you are cooked in this town.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when do you get to?
They just happen to always break during Tales, just so you guys know.
Oh yeah.
When you jam, when you go beyond capacity for an event, and the air conditioners always break.
Oh yeah. That's not good. That's when things clear out.
Right. When do you get to exhale? When do you? And I know it's not day one, but do you have to get all the way to the end to exhale, or can you get halfway through and be like, okay, there's nothing more I can do. It's going to be what it's going to be.
Every year is a little bit differently. It just ends differently for me. 2 years ago, I was fully relaxed on the last day, and then we had a little hiccup, and I was like, oh my God, why did I let my guard down?
Okay.
So I generally, the past few years, my daughter goes to camp at the end of Tales, which is
okay.
I've had to drive up to North Carolina the past few years at the end of Tales, which is, you can imagine, absolutely freaking miserable.
Yeah.
Brutal.
So, and I will do it again. This year I'm going to fly because they're going to be up near camp. So I'm going to go meet them up there.
Okay.
But when I get on that plane and I cannot do anything to change what's happened and it's fully baked, I will exhale.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Fair.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
How How rough was last year for y'all and all of the plane debacle?
It was tough, right? And but there's always something like, and
Okay.
and I think that but like we've had hurricanes that have come. Like we don't have hurricanes in July ever. Like we've had a hurricane that came through like right before, like, or a tropical storm, and it's there's always something. Like it is Tales. The only thing that has prepared me for Tales of the Cocktail is working in bars and restaurants, where
Okay.
you walk in and
Fair.
like something. Am I allowed to curse on your
Absolutely,
podcast?
100%.
So you walk in the door and something is fucked, or like something happens and you're like, well, this is fucked, right? And
Totally
I
fine.
guess I've got to like make the best of it, right?
Yep.
Well, like every year there are like at least 5 things at Tales that are like fucked,
Well,
right? And and you just have to just deal with it. And bars and restaurants, like they condition you to have to work through those. It's not to say it's fun, but you just do it because you have to. The show must go on.
Yeah.
No, and I know, with the Delta Interactive experience last year, with CrowdStrike and all that, we know a lot of people that were proper fucked, and just, I mean, talking to a couple of people at the airport, they're like, I have an activation tomorrow, and I have all of my booze here, and we're not going out there. What do we do?
Yeah.
And so those kind of weird situations.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, they don't happen this year, but. And I know pivot is a dirty word, but nobody knows how to pivot quite like a hospitality professional. So
it's true, and it sucks. People spend a lot of money on these activations. It's not just the amount of money. Like, I think about the amount of money that people pay to be on the schedule at Tails and for us to go through the compliance to make sure that the events are legal. But the other part is like that's a fraction of what an event costs. An event it's flying your teams down, it's putting your teams up, it's feeding them, it's getting people to come, it's the activation of the event, it is the space rental. There is so much. I once heard, and it's probably gone up, that for every $1 that a sponsor spends with Tales of the Cocktail, they spend 13 in the community. And I think I would venture to say that that's gone. And so, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about us or BCB or 50 Best or, Arizona Cocktail Week or any of the other events. That is, what people do with the event is very small, but what they do to make their events great, it costs a lot of money, takes a lot of time and energy, and to be caught on a plane that is never going to take off, or to be stuck in an airport and to watch that investment turn to nothing is heartbreaking. It is a lot of effort. So I really felt for so many people last year, and there's just nothing to do, just to, get back. Sometimes you eat a shit sandwich and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
But the one silver lining out of all of that was when you finally made it to New Orleans and you got there and you saw people that love you and appreciate you, and getting that gigantic hug and of appreciation, a lot of that pain washes away, even for a moment. And that's what makes Tales, like you said, Neal, just so special.
And you are a part of that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I feel very, very grateful and very fortunate to be currently one of the stewards of the organization. I've certainly, we didn't start it, and it's a magical thing, and I'm very, very honored to be a part of the team that keeps it going.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Now, obviously, you're a very skilled person with mixed drinks and cocktails, and you have a book to prove it. And were you surprised by how much of an instant hit that book was when it came out? Because I remember when it came out, it created quite the buzz, sir. So did that inspire you to work on future books?
Well, that's a good question. I said I would. First of all, I didn't want to write the book. My wife was like, "You need to write a book," and I was like, "No, I don't." Right? And when I met Emily Timberlake, who's the co-author of the book, we just had a fun doing it, and it made me want to be a part of the book and want to do it. And so I really don't know if I'll do another one, and that's kind of me to say about the book. I didn't think I wasn't sure if anybody was going to like it. Anytime I'm sure you guys feel the same way for the stuff you do. You're like, is anybody actually going to like this?
Right.
Yeah.
And people did, and it's been an incredible honor to see it. I've had people send me pictures of it on bookshelves in Japan.
That's cool. I
had a friend of mine from high school and college who was at a bar in Paris, and he was like, it was like a locals bar, and they had it, and they were talking about how they use the book all the time. It's like, what the, you just you never expect it, right? As someone that loves history, the thing that was most appealing about doing the book, and look, there are a lot of people that contributed to that book. I think when we did the book, it was about 12 years into Cure when we started compiling the recipes. There are 12 years of bartenders who put up recipes for that.
Right.
I have a small fraction of recipes in that book.
Right.
And it really is, it's about the work that the team has done, and it's about the history of New Orleans, and it's not just a book about Cure, it's a book about New Orleans. It's a love letter to the city and my view of New Orleans. New Orleans has so many, everybody that lives here has a different perspective on it, and it's just my version of it.
Sure.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. All righty. Well, I think we have talked about your love of New Orleans, and we have talked about your love of
like a broken
record,
and
your love. So we are going to come to the end of your time, and yes. we will bid you adieu. But before we do, wait. Yes.
No, I was gonna say you're not off the hook yet, Neal.
You are not off the hook because we do have a few questions to ask you. Because we do like for our people who listen in, if they were to ever come to your city and maybe come and sit at Cure or Canaan Table, which we happen to also adore, we would want them to know a few things about your beloved city and maybe some of the things that you might suggest. So, if we were sitting at your bar at one of your two prospective places, and we were coming to the end of happy hour, where would you suggest our next stop to be?
Well, I am going to answer your question with some follow-up questions.
All right.
Fair.
Do you want it close or do you want it far away? Like, are we walking? Or are we taking a short drive? Or are we going across town?
We are at Canaan Table, and we're walking. We're walking.
Okay. We're at Canaan Table. We're walking. I am going to go to Jewel of the South, and I'm going to see my dear friend Chris Hanna. And not only do I love his cocktails, but I just love him as a human, and it always makes me happy to see him. So that's where I'm going.
Fantastic.
That's a great choice, and I will say Chris Hanna's great. The secret sauce to that bar is Vince.
Totally agree. Vince is a true pro.
Yeah, just head down, just gets ish done. He's remarkable.
So, I first met Vince when he was working at Beretta in San Francisco.
Okay.
Oh,
what
wow.
a guy. Nicest guy. Yeah.
Super nice guy.
All right. So I know New Orleans is not necessarily known for its burgers, but if I'm craving a burger, where should I go?
Okay. More follow-up questions.
Okay.
Sure.
Because, it's like pizza, burgers, it's not like there's like categories, right?
Sure.
There's subcategories. Sure. So are we talking about a thick bistro burger? Are we talking about a flat top burger? What style?
We're talking a flat top burger.
Yep.
I want just a good old fashioned. I want a good burger. I just want good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So flat top burger, company burger, and company burger. The thing that I love about company burger is that even though they are very high volume and they're right down the street from Cure and Val's, so it's we go a lot. My daughter happens to love it, which gets me there a lot. But, Adam's a dear friend. He used to work the door at Cure when he was working on Company Burger, and he's consulted for us. He did the opening menus at Canaan Table. His
Wow.
name's Adam Biederman, and he was also the chef at Holman and Finch back in the day, and he was one of the creators of their famed burger. And so he saw that and said, you know what? I need to go open a place that is dedicated to this, to this style of burger. And he opened Company Burger, got over 10 years ago, and maybe more, like probably 12. And it's an awesome burger. They grind their own meat. They make their own pickles. They make their own mayo. Like they just do it.
Heard.
Yeah. And
Okay. But if I were going to go for a thick burger, because we need to talk about the variation of burgers,
Of
I
course.
would go to a Le Petit grocery. Justin DeVilliers has an amazing burger over there. So
it's a great place. When it's 2 a.m, you just need a sandwich.
Yep.
Too.
All right. I have an afternoon to kill. What am I doing in New Orleans? Like, and maybe something a little off the grid.
Well, I think it depends. I mean, there are a few things there are 1,000 things to do, right? Like if you want to do, like, the most traditional thing is you walk around the French Quarter and the Marigny and you pop in and out of places, and that is awesome. And you go see the art galleries on Royal and the antique stores, and that's an incredible way to spend time. Now, what I also really love going to Mid-City, and I love going to City Park and to the New Orleans Museum of Art and the Sculpture Garden.
Beautiful.
Really great. There is you've got a Cafe Du Monde is out there, so you can eat beignets out there. And then you've got some wonderful restaurants, some of them very traditional, and some of them are really, some of them are kind of new wave. You could go, after you're done at City Park, you can go have a drink. And actually, what is considered the best burger, they actually won best burger in New Orleans. Chris McMillan makes his own burger at Rebel. So you go have a Chris McMillan cocktail and a Chris McMillan hamburger, which is very close. You could go see Isaac and Amanda Toops at Toops Meadery.
Yes.
Get the meadery plate.
And they do so much nonprofit work. I mean, they're literally, when school lunches got cut over the summer, they provide them now. I mean, you want to talk about amazing citizens in New Orleans. Like, they're just people that you want to support for all the great work that they do. There is the Bell is over there, which Brooks Wrights, who is a fabulous restaurateur in Charleston, opened up a little English pub on Esplanade. There's Cafe Degas over there, which is an amazing place that's been there for a long time for, like, very classic French food. And then you've got a great wine shop over there. You've got, let's see, Carrollton has like Mandina's, which is like very traditional Creole Italian. You've got Venetia's if you want Creole Italian as well. There's barbecue at Blue Oak. There's just like so much awesome stuff.
That sounds killer.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah. I don't know why every idea I have, I'm like, yeah, we'll do like the park and then see some art and then we'll eat and then we'll drink and then we'll eat and then we'll drink and then we'll eat and we'll drink.
Because it's New Orleans.
And repeat.
Like,
what you do.
Like, my next question is freaking ridiculous, and I realize it's ridiculous because it's New Orleans. It was like the first time I went to New Orleans. So yeah, what's one place I should eat in the city? There's no answer to this. I know this answer. There's no answer to this.
There's no. I mean, what do you? Okay, I'm going to give you an answer.
Let me quantify
because.
Yes.
So I'm going to give you an answer. It's not the answer. It is an answer, right? So what I would say is this. There is a legendary chef that is still cooking in New Orleans. His name is Frank Brightson. And in the story history of Commander's Palace, there was Paul Prudhomme. There was then the next chef after him was Frank Brightson. And then the next chef after Frank Brightson was Emerald.
Okay.
And Frank is really the keeper of the flame of Creole, not Cajun, Creole cooking, even though he has some touches. And he has an amazing small restaurant. Everybody else went big. He went small and has for over 35 years at the River Bend in a very sleepy neighborhood. And he makes absolutely the best food. And the service there is so incredible. his wife and her two sisters and the rest of the team there are like, they win service awards all the time. It is just a place. If you want to truly experience what makes New Orleans special, it is a place that you must go to.
All right.
Frank is still going strong, but at some point, I suspect he'll want to hang up his knives.
Sure.
So I think you got to go.
What's the name of the place?
Oh, I didn't even say it. It's called Brightson's. His name is Frank Brightson.
Okay.
His restaurant's called Brightson's.
Excellent. Excellent. So I was going to quantify it because it was such a. I was going to categorize it with something that we normally don't ask, but New Orleans is such a remarkable fried chicken place.
He knows what his answer is.
Where are you going if in the middle of Tales and you just need some life-sustaining fried chicken? Where are you going?
It's interesting. First of all, I just want to go on record and say that I am a Popeyes guy. That Popeyes in New Orleans just hits a little different.
Okay.
So I just want to get that out there. It started in New Orleans. It's just a little different here. But every time I go to Willie Mays, and they just opened a newer location that's a little easier to get to, and when the chicken comes out, when the minute it comes out and it's hot, it is different. It's like light and airy and incredible. And I don't know what they do. I don't know how they do it, but it is fried chicken that is not to be missed. Willie Mays.
Yeah.
Willie Mays Scotch House.
Awesome. Cool.
Oh,
not to be confused with Willie's Chicken Shack.
Right.
Nope.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Where am I going for brunch?
Look, you go where it was invented. You go to Brennan's. Nobody surprises and delights quite like Brennan's. Magical courtyard, great service, great, amazing champagne list, totally underrated part of what they do. And it's just a great place to go.
And where am I finishing the night off with a shot and a beer?
Well, obviously we've already talked about Nicholas Jarrett. He is a partner in Holy Diver.
Yes.
And so for me, if I were on that side of town, if I were finishing my night on that side of town, I would go to Holy Diver. I happen to have a local that is a lot closer to me than that I would probably go to for me. But if I had to pick anywhere, travel's not an option, I would want to go to Nick's Bar and have a beer and a shot.
It's a great place. Holy Diver's super cool, and we have good memories of Holy Diver because that was the first place where we landed last year after we finally made it to New Orleans. Found 5 or 6 people in line, gave us gigantic hugs, and then we walked in and Nick Jarrett's running buckets of ice because he's Nick Jarrett. It was incredible.
That's
he's
what
the
one
GOAT.
does.
Yeah.
That's what one does.
Well, Neal, thank you so much for joining us today on Manning Overboard. We appreciate you so
Thank you guys for having me.
And I hope you had as much fun as we did talking to you. Now, if people want to follow you on the socials, where should they look?
Well, I do my best to do some Gen X version of Instagram, and it's at Neal Bodie, NealBodie, and that's the best way. That's the best way to follow me. Obviously, all of our venues, Cure, Cane and Table, Peychaud's, Val's, and Dauphines. Everybody has their own Instagram account, and obviously, you should follow Tales of the Cocktail. They have probably the most interesting stuff to post about, but that's where you can find me.
Lovely.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And remember, gang, you can find us at Manning Overboard on Instagram or email us at manningoverboard@gmail.com for questions or comments. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you on our next happy hour. Cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
Manning Overboard, Happy Hour with Hotcakes and the Captain is produced and distributed by EatsDrinksTV.
A service of the nonprofit Center for Culinary Culture, home of the Cocktail Collection,
The Center for Culinary Culture,
telling the story of food and drink, one taste at a time.